of retin. Ooh, that was cool. That was too cool.
I never wanted this fact to be known. In fact, I've spent the better half of my adult life trying to sweep my early years under the carpet and have a life that was clearly just mine and independent of the historic fate of my family. Can you imagine what it was like to be one of them? To talk like them, to be built like them, to have the benefits of being born into such a wealthy and powerful American family. I went to the best schools, had all kinds of tutors and trainers. I traveled widely, met the famous, the controversial, and the not so admirable. And I knew from a very early age that if there were ever any possibility of escaping the collective fate of this famous Boston family, I would take that route. And I have. I hopped on an Amtrak to New York in the early 70s, and I guess you could say my hidden years began. I thought, well, I'll be a poet. What could be more foolish and obscure? I became a lesbian. Every woman in my family looks like a dyke, but it's really stepping off the flag when you become one. While holding this ignominious pose, I have seen and I have learned, and I'm beginning to think there is no escaping history. A woman I was currently having an affair with said, "You know, you look like a Kennedy." I felt the blood rising in my cheeks. People have always laughed at my Boston accent, confusing large for large, party for party. But when this unsuspecting woman invoked for the first time my family name, I knew the jig was up. Yes, I am a Kennedy. My efforts to remain obscure have not served me well. Starting as a humble poet, I quickly climbed to the top of my profession, assuming a position of leadership and honor. It is right that a woman should call me out now. Yes, I am a Kennedy, and I await your orders. You are the new Americans. The homeless are wandering the streets of our nation's greatest cities. Homeless men with AIDS are among them. Is that right? That there are no homes for the homeless? That there is no free medical help for these men and women? That they get the message that as they are dying, that this is not their home? And how are your teeth today? Can you afford to fix them? How high is your rent? If art is the highest and most honest form of communication of our time, and the young artist is no longer able to move here to speak to her time, yes, I could, but that was 15 years ago. And remember, as I must, I am a Kennedy. Shouldn't we all be Kennedys? Our nation's greatest cities are home of the businessman, home of the rich artist, people with beautiful teeth who are not on the streets. What should we do about this dilemma? Listen, I have been educated. I have learned about Western civilization. Do you know what the message of Western civilization is? I am alone. Am I alone tonight? I don't think so. Am I the only one with bleeding gums in this room tonight? Am I the only homosexual in this room? Am I the only one whose friends have died or dying now? And my art can't be supported until it's bigger than everyone else's, confirming the audience's feeling that they are alone. That they alone are good, deserve to buy the tickets to see this art, are working, are healthy, should survive, and are normal. Are you normal today? Everyone here, are we all normal? It is not normal for me to be a Kennedy, but I am no longer ashamed, no longer alone. I'm not alone today because we are all Kennedys, and I am your president. I'm going to read a teeny little story, which is more confession. It's called Light Warrior. My name means light warrior when you bring it home to the present through Latin and Gaelic. I am a significant person, maybe a saint or larger than life. I hear that you judge a saint by her whole personality, not just her work. I'm beginning to see my work as my shadows, less and less necessary, done with less and less care. I see my existence as similar to that of a sundial's when I simply stand, and slowly the notion of movement is also suggesting itself to my consciousness, and action is also appropriate in the realm of the saint, the character who begins her life in the windows of a church, in the religious air of her own imagination, until history lines up with her nature and the path becomes clear. The storms of identity erupt and implode and gather again, and one of life's soldiers realizes her whole basis for living has changed, and now she is impelled forward in a new film. I thought I lived in a world of darkness and confusion, and I was the single, glowing, and true thing. I sought only the companions who would confirm this interpretation of the mystery that shrouded my life. I couldn't move from there, nor would I have chosen to do so. I was in classrooms and offices, bars, hospitals, state schools for the incurable, and I briefly flickered with a ray of hopefulness. Yet as a cab driver, I continually drove to these places, bound to break down. And so the hope for change and the desire for an environment where I could become helpful was always quickly extinguished, and I imagined it was the way the world was, or the way I was. Like many others, I became an artist. I choose not to dwell on that cultural accident. Let's say I have always been brilliant in the realm of play. In neighborhood games, I always crashed right through the lines of kids' hands. As the light fell on the suburban summer night, I was a winner. They would call 3, and myself and another kid would feint and lunge in the middle for some object on the ground, and it had to be grabbed and brought back to a team without the player having been sullied. And it was true, I had not been touched by my opponent. There was something scummy about adolescence. It wasn't sex. It was how I hated myself when I was confused, how loathsome the act of waiting for something was. But when I was very young, I had a mission. It was clear. A girl in school wanted to borrow my Joan of Arc comic book, and I replied I would have to ask my father, which struck everyone as an odd reply. My oddness, my embarrassment also confirmed my specialness. My father entrusted me with a junior classics comic book about Joan of Arc, the first woman I aspired to be. It was an instruction manual, and if the girl, Joan Salinga, had sidled over to me in the schoolyard and said, "Let me have it, Eileen, light warrior," I would have silently passed her the honor. I have waited all my life for permission. I feel it growing in my breast. A war is storming, and it is behind me, and I am moving my forces into light. You know what I'm jealous of? Last night, it held us both in its big black arms, and today I hold between my legs a shivering pussy, bleeding and shaking, wet with memory, grief and relief. I don't know why the universe chose me to be female. So much beauty and pain, so much going on inside, all this change everywhere, coins falling all over the bed, and death is a dream. Deep in the night with thousands of lovers, the sucking, snapping, reeling flesh. Deep in the cavity of endless night, across mounds of bodies, I peer over. Is it love or war? The hollow, creeping cheek where I was born. Sleepless. I came in tonight in my building side. It was a beautiful woman stretching in the morning, all blue and blonde and gauzy white. My dreams of you are always softer than you are. My dreams must need a goddess, and it seems she has your face. And so you may stay a while in my heart. My image of your languorous arms and fists slowly stretching through the early day as if Monday were another sleepless woman's body. 2 of you to make the universe complete. The embrace of you makes my day so sweet because I am the author of this sport. The other woman is dark and green and curly, full of rocks and sauce and dark lights hanging in the sky. She's the sound of a yawning cave. She pulls me down and makes me whisper evil and violent wishes, makes me spank her with a whip and fierce rules and fawn names to cage her in. How could everything shrink so? These women dancing in my mind. What holds the world together for anyone else? Blind women, white men, frightened Chinese boys. I guess I have a hunger that's stronger than toast. I wouldn't say most because the shapeless woman hanging over my shoulder says I mustn't. She shows me with eyes which are water. She tells me with her breath, incredible, a hurricane, a disaster. Her teeth are sparkling ruin, her tongue a poisoned snake, her throat an endless fall into a meadow of warm sushi, and lakes of blood and green birds swooping and singing, and dawn, a dawn that's unrecognizable. It's there I finally stopped in your midnight arms. What could lead me this way? What furry balconies await me? What amber yawns? What plentiful breasts? Diving between the legs of God to see a mirror, an amazing pond, a one-eyed man inside you cleaning the kitchen with a sparkling knife. I step on his face and snap his back in two with my finger, and you reward me with hot throb, and I never do come back. I want you home with me. I want you alone with me. I wish you would get lost so I could walk the world with my women. I would call your name everywhere. Wouldn't that be enough? Even better? There is a woman in the flower, millions of women hiding in the trees. You will never miss me. There is a universe of color for you to feed from. Before I leave you, I will open its legs with my sword. This one's called Looking Out, a Sailor. This is sort of sad. It's about a girl who died. She OD'd. The clouds looked made, and perhaps they were. An angry little shelf for the moon to have some influence on. I'm dying tomorrow. My car died tonight, a glorious explosion, then clunk. Turning pages, coming up on midnight when the poet died. It was his heart, not his head. The girl, she was, say, 27, covered in tattoo, a sauce her boyfriend made to cover her sins. Let's say she is glad tonight to be dead. Her name? Lori Jackson. So I push on and my dog needs a bath. Don't sell Rosie short, says the trainer, and flatted, I won't. I remember the last night with my car. Came home and called the night watery grave. Didn't know why. Everyone dying around me now, but not yet, not me yet. The lights all smeared and gooey in an incredible downpour like Lori's body. I could see shadows that I think were persons. They were the dead and we were alive. Yes, I think it was that way that last night. So lucky I didn't hit one. My pooch by my side. This is my life, I thought, when I grow up as a child. In my boat with my dog named what? Rosie. She barks. Driving into the night. God, we couldn't see a thing, but we weren't scared. Besides, we'd had plenty of life. Prayed for a parking space. Funny, turning in the dark, those lights back there are cars, I think. Don't ask me, said Rosie. But I wanted to sail the rest of my life. It was dumb. I'd arrived. There was my space. Perfect, and I pulled in, and this is the saddest poem I ever wrote. What can I tell you about sadness? The shapes you find beneath it, how you run from it in your sleep, bolting awake. Early in my labors, I worked with children. I was one then, but so what? The story goes. Autistic kids, a boy named Bobby who so loved porcelain, he leaned his cheek on it, a little animal and his cool white mama. The things I warm my hands by are not true. Someone who holds her head like that, forbidding, I think is warm. I would lay my paw on her icy bottle, her icy dead cheek, her red legs. The red lights rippled in my watery grave. If I could paint tonight, I would be the word that fills the silence after modern, following something slow, red, changing lanes. It was utterly silent, my painting, the dog breathing, well, relentlessly. And they had pulled my antenna off long ago, so deep down there was some music, classical. How to say I was having the pivotal moment in my life with the dog. All the silence had led up to here, and streamers could be followed to the moment of my death. What kind could I be? Some kind of poet who followed it along, say it's distant and far off, or right next to me now? I do not know or choose to. I saw the world melt all at once. I want to go with everyone, waiting for everything to shift back to real, and it's stranger and stranger now. All of my lies don't lie anymore. The car dies and I drive on. The rain stops. He said I would surely outlive my dog, and I know that, and I took her home. But everyone? No, I didn't know that. When everyone goes, I go. I'm following now, and our truth is dark. Joan. Today, May 30th, Joan of Arc was burned. She was 19 when she died, and a man saw white doves fly from her mouth. Joan was born in 1512 between Lorraine and Champagne. Joan was raised on legends. Merlin said France would be lost by a woman and saved by a virgin. Joan was not an adventurous girl, not a tomboy, but very dreamy, stay-at-home, the baby of her family. Joan never got her period. She heard these voices in the bells. She saw angels in colored glass. She believed the sun moved around the earth because that's what she saw. She believed God wanted Charles VII to be king of France because that's what Michael, Catherine, and Margaret told her when she listened to the bells. Her father said he'd drown her if she didn't stop this nonsense. She was 19 years old when they burned her body in the middle of town while she was still alive. A white dove came out of her mouth as she died. 431 years ago today, a dove leaped right out of her mouth. Life. My sense of preservation. A gift born to me by my mother through the days of her world has led me to wrap bread in plastic. Occasionally, fruit. A lime may sit split in the spattered refrigerated door, there to dry and get like plastic. But never bread. Bread must live. I wish I had a collection of plastic things to put all other things in. Little bits of food that I would keep longer, eat later. But not living food like tomatoes. No, I mean bread. Why do I fear the demise of bread so much? It's drying up and hardening. Surely I think it's some kind of bodies. Bread's so cheap and so is flesh, really. There's so much of it daily walking through the streets of my world. But is it my world, really? I'm just another loaf of bread and shoes, marking time. I sat on a stoop this afternoon in front of a camera, trying to make a glowing impression that would last and travel far, an important crumb. When I read books, I think of my cunt. If it's about love of God, the hotter I get. I better clean some things up, I think, putting the corpses of the things I eat onto little shelves. I close the door and a light goes out. I am God. I went to India a few years ago, and I had one of those things that happen where you wake up in the middle of the night and you're sort of half in a dream. So I just started writing like hell, and this is that, and it's called A Debate with a Glove. And these are people I went to grade school with. I went to grade school in Arlington, Mass. At St. Agnes School. And I went to Arlington Catholic High School. And this is what happened. John Higgins, Mary McCluskey, what about them? I flashed my palm and wagged it. The personality is the site of spiritual advancement. What about my book? Spirituality and sexuality. That's all. Make the young dogs pay. A play is an opportunity to do something visual. My vision. Here, let me straighten these shirts. Eileen spoke so well about the creative process. Maybe she would like to do it again. What about those monuments? The beggar and the priest, the weight of my cunt. Let me walk the streets of Baghdad. Are these breasts mine? What kind of problem is a poem? We don't get to choose what kind of spiritual experience we have. We don't get to choose our orgasm. We don't even get to choose our lover. What happened to me? Who was she? Are they bed bugs? Take me to Delhi fast. I itch. At 5, my soul wants to be alone with the world and its armies. With my sex, with my hands, my beautiful hands. She had been turned into a deity in the end. First she vanished, then she was that. I know what kind of god I'd like to be. A blue god man. Those men, they make me want to dance. Tell me something else. Was I married? Have I been here before? Why am I always in between? Is it late or is it early? Money, I could give a shit. Fame, forget it. An authenticity that rattles my bones. Is it 2 of everything, or is it 1? Or is it none? I'm sorry we went to war with you and broke your bridge. I'll fix it now. Really. Should we get married or something? I'm very smart. Oh, you don't think so? Well, maybe I'll write a poem. Suddenly, I don't care that I'm gonna die. Even the bed keeps me awake. The breeze of the world. It opened my jar. It called me home. It said, Lucifer. I was standing at some Christian bookstore once in New Hampshire, and I picked up some book, and they were talking about Lucifer, and they said that the reason Lucifer got thrown out of heaven is he was moving around the sacred words, like Lucifer was the first poet, and that was his crime. This one's called The Honey Bear. Billie Holiday was on the radio. I was standing in the kitchen smoking my cigarette of this pack I planned to finish tonight. Last night of smoking youth. I made a cup of this funny kind of tea I've had hanging around. A little too sweet, an odd mix. My only impulse was to make it sweeter. Ivy Anderson was singing pretty late tonight in my very bright kitchen. I'm standing by the tub, feeling a little older, nearly 30, in my very bright kitchen tonight. I'm not a bad-looking woman, I suppose. Oh, it's very quiet in my kitchen tonight. I'm squeezing this plastic honey bear, a noodle of honey dripping into the odd sweet tea. It's pretty late. Honey Bear's cover was loose, and somehow honey dripping down the bear's face, catching in the crevices beneath the bear's eyes. Oh, very sad and sweet. I'm standing in the kitchen. Oh, honey, I'm staring at the honey bear's face. Thanks.
Thank you, Eileen. That was great. Okay. Now, I want to show you guys that there's one thing you should think of doing, and that's suck it up to me, because if you suck up to me, then you're gonna, you can suck off of me. So, okay. Somebody sucked up to me and said they wanted to say something, so I said that they could. And what was your name? Carolyn's gonna tell us a little bit about being a hardcore riot girl, so listen up!
Okay, I didn't plan this, so I don't know exactly what I'm going to say, but I thought this all-girl extravaganza would be a good time to make the point. Because I've noticed through all the things that we need to get rid of this shit because I'm sick of it, and it's about power, not pain. Everyone knows there's too much pain going on here. Whether it's walking down the street or whether it's just being anywhere, you have to deal with this shit, and I'm sick of dealing with this shit. And I'm sick of feeling like nobody gives a shit about what happens to me and stuff like that. It's because it's power, not pain. And I'm just wanting people to know that no matter who you are, no matter what you do, you can work to do something. Whether it's joining Riot Girl, whether it's, making posters, making stickers, joining a band, whatever. But something just has to be done because there's not enough being done. Every time a woman is raped, we all die with her. It doesn't matter if you're male or female, but everybody is being crucified when that happens. It can't go on. I don't know how to make it end, but I'm trying. One thing, I take a women's self-defense course, and I recommend this for about all the women, because it's really been empowering and stuff. We learn different things, and it's really fun just walking around, just being able to scream, no! And just stuff like that. Didn't mean to scare you, but and just screaming and learning different tactics to learn how to protect yourself, because as the shit tells, you have to protect yourself almost all the time. This is just a little self-promotion. I have a magazine too, if anybody is interested. It's called Don't Even. Maximum Rock and Roll liked it.